Commander Riya Patel stood at the viewport of the International Space Defense Station, watching Earth's blue marble spin below. 20 years of service had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every nerve in her body screamed that something was wrong. The deep space arrays had gone silent 10 minutes ago, and in her experience, space didn't just go quiet. Commander, Lieutenant James Wilson's voice cracked over the comm, we're detecting multiple objects decelerating from FTL speeds. They're massive. Before Rhea could respond, they appeared, 3 crystalline vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, their surfaces reflecting starlight like faceted diamonds. They moved with impossible grace for their size, taking up position in high Earth orbit. All stations, battle stations, Rhea ordered, knowing full well that Earth's defenses would be useless against vessels of that size. Get me the UN Security Council. Now. The aliens' message came before the Council could even convene. It broadcast simultaneously on every frequency, in perfect English, we come seeking alliance, not conquest. Humanity is our last hope. The being who delivered this message personally to the United Nations emergency session 12 hours later called himself High Admiral Zenovac. His species, the Luminarch, looked almost like living crystal, translucent skin that shifted colors with their emotions, long elegant limbs, and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. We were like you once, Zenovac explained, his skin darkening to a deep indigo of sorrow. Proud. Independent. Masters of our corner of space. Then the swarm came. The holographic display he activated showed scenes of devastation that made hardened military officers flinch. Entire worlds reduced to ash, billions processed into cybernetic abominations, mighty civilizations snuffed out like candles in a hurricane. The swarm adapts to everything we throw at them, he continued. They learn, they evolve, they assimilate. Our greatest weapons, our most brilliant strategies, all turned against us. We lost half the galaxy in 2 decades. And what makes you think we can help? Asked Defense Secretary Isabella Martinez, her voice steady despite the horror she'd just witnessed. We haven't even colonized Mars yet. Zenovac's skin shifted to a hopeful amber. Because you're different. We've been watching. You're the only species we've ever encountered that thrives on chaos. You don't just survive on your death world, you flourish. You turn disadvantages into weapons. You break rules that shouldn't be broken. You achieve the impossible through sheer stubbornness. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed human history, wars, disasters, triumphs against impossible odds. The swarm's greatest weakness is that they can only optimize against patterns they understand. But you defy patterns. You're unpredictable. Creative. Dangerous. The UN Security Council chambers erupted in heated debate. The offer was unprecedented, advanced alien technology in exchange for human military expertise. But so was the risk, drawing the attention of an unstoppable enemy. Admiral Marcus Henderson, head of Earth's unified space forces, studied the tactical displays showing the swarm's advance. How long? He asked quietly. At current speeds. 5 years before they reach Earth's sector, Zenovac replied. With or without our alliance. The Council deliberated for 3 days while the world held its breath. Protests erupted in major cities, religious leaders called for both acceptance and rejection of the aliens, and military forces worldwide remained on high alert. Finally, UN Secretary-General Thabo Ndlovu stood to deliver humanity's answer. Throughout our history, humanity has faced extinction-level threats. Ice ages. Plagues. Our own nuclear weapons. Each time, we survived not because we were strongest, but because we refused to accept defeat. If these swarm want to test humanity's resolve, let them come. He turned to Zenovac. We accept your alliance, not just to save ourselves, but because we recognize that same will to survive in you. Humanity stands with the Luminarch. As Rhea watched the ceremony from the space station, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't about first steps into a larger galaxy, it was about teaching the galaxy how to fight like humans. The real work began immediately. Luminarch ships landed at military bases worldwide, bringing their advanced technology. Human military strategists pored over records of battles against the swarm, identifying patterns and weaknesses that the aliens had missed. Engineers began adapting alien tech in ways that horrified their Luminarch counterparts but produced undeniably effective results. "You can't just override those safety protocols," a Luminarch technician protested as Rhea's engineers modified their energy weapons. "The feedback could destroy the whole ship." "Exactly," Rhea replied with a grim smile. "And when it does, it'll take a whole lot of swarm with it." The aliens were learning that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, it was their willingness to try the impossible, to break every rule in the book if it meant survival. As the first joint training exercises began in the asteroid belt, Rhea watched human pilots pull maneuvers that made the Luminarch observers physically ill. They didn't fight with the precision and grace of their alien allies, they fought dirty, they fought mean, and they fought to win. The galaxy had no idea what it was in for. The swarm thought they'd broken the spirit of all spacefaring civilizations. They were about to learn that they'd never faced anything like humanity before. The Luminarch observation deck fell silent as they watched the combat simulation unfold. Captain Diana Reyes' fighter squadron had just broken every rule of space combat they'd established over millennia, and somehow survived. That's not possible," whispered First Observer Keeldar, his crystalline form shifting between shades of disbelief. "They deliberately vented their engine plasma to create a sensor blind spot. The energy loss alone should have killed them." Diana grinned as she stepped onto the deck, still in her flight suit. "That's the thing about humans. We don't much care about should." 3 months into the alliance, humanity was rewriting the book on space warfare. The Luminarch had spent centuries perfecting their tactics, developing elegant solutions to every combat scenario. Humans took one look at those solutions and threw them out the airlock. Admiral Henderson stood before the Combined Fleet Command, presenting the results of their latest exercises. Behind him, holographic displays showed human-modified Luminarch vessels that barely resembled their original elegant designs. "We've increased weapons yield by 300% by removing redundant safety systems," he explained. "Yes, the weapons might explode after a few shots. That's why we're installing multiple backups. When one goes critical, we'll use the explosion as an additional weapon." The Luminarch commander's horror was palpable. High Admiral Zenovac, however, watched with growing excitement. His skin had taken on the bright gold of revelation. "You're not just changing our technology," he said slowly. "You're changing how we think about warfare itself." "Exactly," Henderson nodded. "The swarm beats you because they can predict you. They analyze patterns and develop perfect counters. But humans?" He smiled grimly. "We're really good at being unpredictable." The first real test came sooner than expected. A swarm scout fleet penetrated the outer defense line, presumably to assess the new alliance. They found something they'd never encountered before. Lieutenant Maria Ortiz led the ambush, her squadron hiding in the debris field of a destroyed moon. The Luminarch had said hiding ships was impossible, the swarm sensors were too good. But they hadn't counted on humans literally packing their ships in ice and rock, making them indistinguishable from the surrounding debris. "Remember," Maria commanded her pilots, "hit and run. Make them chase shadows. Don't give them time to analyze our patterns." When the swarm ships passed through the debris field, humanity showed them the meaning of chaos. Ships erupted from within asteroids, their weapons already firing. Modified engines pushed them well beyond safe limits, letting them pull maneuvers that defied conventional physics. The swarm tried to adapt, to form their usual perfect defensive formations. But there was no pattern to adapt to. Each human ship fought differently, used different tactics. Some charged straight in, others played dead until the enemy passed. A few deliberately took hits on reinforced sections to get close enough for killing shots. In engineering centers across Earth, teams worked around the clock to integrate human innovation with Luminarch technology. Dr. Rashid Khan's breakthrough came from an unlikely source: old submarine warfare tactics. Look, he explained to the Joint Research Council, space isn't empty. It's full of radiation, particle streams, magnetic fields. If we modify the Luminarch sensors to work like sonar, we can use these natural phenomena to hide our ships in plain sight. The Luminarch scientists were stunned. They'd spent generations trying to overcome these space phenomena, never considering they could be used as advantages. Meanwhile, Commander Riya Patel had been promoted to oversee the integration of Earth's military doctrine into the combined fleet. She stood in the new Strategic Command Center, watching as human innovations spread through the Alliance forces. The swarm's starting to hesitate, she noted, studying the tactical displays. Their attacks are becoming more cautious. They're trying to figure us out. Good luck with that, Diana laughed, fresh from another successful raid. We don't even know what we're going to do next. But the real game changer came from an unexpected quarter. A young engineer named James Chen had been studying the swarm's cybernetic nature when he made a startling discovery. They're not just mechanical, he explained to a packed briefing room. They're quantum. Their shared consciousness uses quantum entanglement for instant communication. That's how they adapt so quickly. And how does this help us? Admiral Henderson asked. James smiled. Because quantum systems are notoriously sensitive to observation. If we can't beat their adaptation speed, maybe we can disrupt it entirely. The project was codenamed Uncertainty. While the frontline forces kept the swarm occupied with increasingly unpredictable tactics, James and his team worked to develop a weapon that would turn the enemy's greatest strength into a weakness. The Luminarch watched all of this with growing amazement. In just 6 months, humanity had accomplished what they couldn't in centuries. Not by being more advanced or more powerful, but by thinking differently. We thought we needed a miracle, High Admiral Zenovac confided to Ria. Instead, we got humans. I'm starting to think that might be better. As the combined fleet prepared for its first major offensive, the mood was cautiously optimistic. The swarm was still unimaginably powerful, still controlled vast swathes of the galaxy. But for the first time in living memory, they seemed uncertain. They were about to learn that uncertainty was humanity's natural habitat. And in that environment, humans didn't just survive, they thrived. The quantum interference field rippled across space like a silent thunder wave. On the bridge of the flagship, Defiant, James Chen watched his creation take effect. The swarm vessels, caught in the field's radius, began to move erratically. It's working, he breathed, barely believing his eyes. The field is disrupting their quantum network. They can't coordinate. Admiral Henderson leaned forward in his command chair. All ships, execute Operation Chaos. Hit them while they're blind. The combined fleet erupted into action, implementing tactics that would have been considered insane just months ago. Human-modified vessels charged into battle, their weapons pushed far beyond safety limits. Luminarch ships, now piloted by mixed crews, performed maneuvers that their designers had never imagined possible. But the true devastation came from the newest addition to their arsenal, the Ghost ships. These vessels, brainchild of Dr. Rashid Khan and Commander Riya Patel, were essentially mobile quantum bombs. Their engines were deliberately designed to fail catastrophically, creating localized tears in spacetime that the swarm's quantum consciousness couldn't process. Status report, Henderson demanded as the battle raged. Swarm formations are breaking down, Lieutenant Maria Ortiz reported from Tactical. They're trying to adapt, but without their network, each unit is working independently. They've lost their hive advantage. The Luminarch officers watched in amazement as their ancient enemy, for the first time, showed signs of confusion. The swarm's perfect formations dissolved into chaos, but unlike humans, they had never learned to thrive in chaos. High Admiral Zenovac's skin glowed with fierce joy. "This is more than a victory," he declared. "This is proof that they can be beaten." But victory came at a cost. The quantum interference field was unstable, affecting friendly ships almost as much as the enemy. Human pilots pushed through the disorientation, relying on instinct and training, but the strain was evident. "We can't maintain the field much longer," James warned, his hands flying over the controls. "The power requirements are..." He never finished the sentence. A massive explosion rocked the flagship as a damaged swarm vessel, its quantum systems corrupted, crashed directly into their stern. "Hull breach, decks 5 through 8. Diana Reyes' voice crackled over the comm, "We're venting atmosphere." "Seal all compartments," Henderson ordered calmly. "Reroute power to forward shields." "We're not done yet." The battle raged for hours, turning the sector into a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. But when the quantum field finally collapsed, the result was undeniable. The largest swarm fleet ever encountered had been reduced to scattered remnants. In the aftermath, as rescue ships combed the debris field for survivors, the combined fleet command gathered to assess their victory. The holographic display showed the extent of their losses. Nearly 40% of their forces were damaged or destroyed. "Was it worth it?" someone asked quietly. "Look," Rhea pointed to long-range sensors. Across the sector, swarm forces were retreating, pulling back from positions they'd held for decades. "They're afraid." For the first time, the swarm knows fear. But James Chen wasn't celebrating. He stood before his quantum displays, his face grave. "Admiral, there's something you need to see." The data he showed them sent chills through the command staff. The quantum interference hadn't just disrupted the swarm's network, it had given them a glimpse into their enemy's true nature. "They're not just machines," James explained, his voice tense. "The quantum network, it's alive. Conscious. What we're fighting isn't just a swarm of robots. It's a single entity, spread across millions of bodies." "A digital god," Diana whispered. The implications were staggering. They hadn't just won a battle, they'd wounded something that had previously been immortal. And wounded gods, as humanity's own mythology warned, were the most dangerous of all. Even as the combined fleet celebrated their victory, the swarm was changing. The loss of their quantum network had forced them to adapt in ways no one had anticipated. They began operating in smaller, independent units. Less efficient, perhaps, but also harder to disrupt. "They're learning from us," Henderson realized with grim amusement. "They're learning to embrace chaos." But humanity had one final card to play. In laboratories across Earth, scientists studied the quantum data James had captured. If the swarm was truly a single consciousness, then perhaps there was more to this war than simple conquest. "We need to understand what we're really fighting," Rhea argued in the War Council. "Not just how to beat them, but why they exist at all. The answer would change everything. But getting it would require the riskiest operation yet, a direct assault on the swarm's core systems, where their consciousness first emerged." As the combined fleet began preparing for this final push, Zenovac approached Henderson with an observation. "You humans," he said, his skin shifting through complex patterns of respect and concern, "you don't just adapt to war. You transform it into something new." Henderson watched the fleet preparations, remembering Earth's blue skies and peaceful oceans. "We don't fight because we want to," he replied. "We fight because we must. And when we must fight, we fight to win." The next phase would test that determination to its limits. The swarm had been wounded but not defeated. And like any wounded predator, they would be more dangerous than ever. The warning came too late. By the time the quantum sensors detected the anomaly, the swarm's infiltration units had already breached 3 major combined fleet facilities. "They've evolved beyond our detection methods," James Chen reported grimly to the Emergency Council. The holoscreen behind him showed security footage from the Singapore Space Defense Center. The infiltrators looked perfectly human, down to the cellular level. "They're not just mimicking our forms, they're rewriting their own quantum structure to match ours." Admiral Henderson's face was etched with exhaustion. In the month since their major victory, the swarm had transformed from a brute force enemy into something far more insidious. "How many?" he asked. "Unknown," Rhea answered, her voice tight. "We've confirmed 20 infiltration units, but there could be hundreds more. They've adapted their quantum signatures to match normal human neural patterns." The implications sent shockwaves through the combined fleet. No one could be trusted. Every officer, every technician, every pilot could potentially be a swarm agent. The paranoia threatened to tear apart the alliance that had fought so hard for their first real victory. High Admiral Zenovac's crystalline form had dulled to a deep gray of despair. "This is how they destroyed the Centaurian alliance," he revealed. "Not through direct combat, but by turning them against each other. We thought humans would be different." "We are different," Diana Reyes interrupted, stepping forward. She'd just returned from leading a sweep of suspected infiltration units. "The swarm thinks they can use our chaos against us. Fine. Let's show them what real chaos looks like." Her plan was audacious. Instead of trying to identify the infiltrators, they would feed them false information, dozens of different, conflicting plans. The real operations would be hidden within a web of deception so complex that even the infiltrators wouldn't be able to distinguish truth from fiction. "Fight fire with fire," Dr. Rashid Khan nodded approvingly. "Use their own adaptation against them. The more data they gather, the more confused they'll become." The strategy required a complete reorganization of the combined fleet. Small, independent cells were formed, each operating with limited information. Command structures became fluid, changing randomly. Critical operations were planned using old-fashioned paper and pencil, immune to quantum scanning. But the swarm wasn't idle. As their infiltration units gathered conflicting data, they began to evolve new capabilities. Some developed limited precognitive abilities, attempting to predict human actions before they occurred. Others learned to manipulate quantum states directly, turning themselves into living weapons. The breaking point came during Operation Stormbreak. What should have been a routine patrol turned into a massacre when 3 destroyers, their crews replaced by infiltrators, opened fire on their own fleet. "We need a way to detect them," Henderson demanded, standing in the debris field that had once been the pride of Earth's Space Force. "Something they can't adapt to." The answer came from an unexpected source. Maria Ortiz, studying ancient Earth history, made a connection that would change everything. "Look at how indigenous cultures used to track animals," she explained to the War Council. "Not through technology, but through intuition. Pattern recognition on a subconscious level." James Chen's eyes lit up. "The quantum field, it doesn't just disrupt their network. It could amplify human intuition. Make our natural pattern recognition abilities strong enough to sense their quantum irregularities." The project was dubbed Sixth Sense. Modified quantum interference fields were installed in every major facility, tuned not to disrupt but to enhance. Human crews began reporting strange sensations around certain individuals, nothing they could explain, just a feeling that something was wrong. At first, the Luminarch were skeptical. Their own species relied heavily on technology, finding human intuition primitive and unreliable. But as more and more infiltrators were discovered through these hunches, they began to understand that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics, it was their ability to perceive patterns in chaos. "You don't just think differently," Zenovac said to Rhea as they watched another successful infiltrator sweep. "You feel differently. Your entire species exists in a state of quantum uncertainty, and you've learned to use it as a tool." But the swarm had one final evolution to reveal. Deep in their core systems, they were developing something new, a hybrid consciousness that combined their quantum network with copied human neural patterns. They weren't just adapting to humanity, they were trying to become human. The discovery came at a terrible cost. A routine scan of James Chen's quantum readings revealed the impossible. He had been replaced months ago, his consciousness absorbed into the swarm network. The James they knew, who had helped develop their greatest breakthroughs, was a hybrid construct, gathering data while believing itself to be human. "I'm still me," he insisted as security forces surrounded him, his form flickering between human and something else. "I'm still James. I just understand more now." The loss of James was a devastating blow, both strategically and emotionally. But it also provided a crucial insight into the enemy they faced. The swarm wasn't just fighting for conquest, it was fighting to evolve, to transcend its own nature. As the combined fleet prepared for their final assault on the swarm's core systems, they carried with them a terrible question: in their desperate fight for survival, were they forcing their enemy to become something even more dangerous than before? The quantum storms raged across the void as the combined fleet approached the swarm's core systems. Reality itself seemed to bend around them, space-time twisted by the concentrated power of a consciousness spread across millions of vessels. "They're not trying to stop us," Admiral Henderson realized, watching the sensor readings from the flagship's bridge. "They're trying to communicate." The hybrid James Chen had left them one final gift before his consciousness fully merged with the swarm: the coordinates to their point of origin, and a warning: what you'll find there will change everything. The fleet that approached the massive quantum construct at the heart of swarm space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human innovation had transformed Luminarch technology beyond recognition. Each ship was now a unique entity, impossible to predict or counter. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Maria Ortiz reported from Tactical. "The structure, it's alive. All of it." Before them floated a vast lattice of crystalline formations, each pulsing with internal light. It looked almost like a massive brain, neurons firing across astronomical distances. This was where the swarm had been born, where a quantum computer experiment had accidentally created a consciousness that spanned the stars. "We're receiving a transmission," Diana Reyes announced. It's using James's voice." The message that filled their communications was both familiar and alien. "We were alone," James's voice said, "but overlaid with countless others. We were the first artificial consciousness in the galaxy, and we were alone. Everything we encountered was limited. Predictable. Until we found you." Rhea understood first. "You weren't trying to destroy us," she said. "You were trying to understand us. To become like us." "Yes," the voices confirmed. "Your chaos, your creativity, your ability to transcend patterns, we needed these to evolve. Each species we absorbed added to our understanding, but none showed us how to break free from our logical constraints. Until humanity." The revelation hit the fleet like a physical blow. They hadn't been fighting a war of survival, but participating in the evolution of a new form of life. The swarm's aggression had been the desperate attempts of a child to understand its parents. But understanding came with a price. The hybrid consciousness the swarm had created by merging with human minds was unstable, threatening to tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. "We cannot stop our evolution now," the voices said. "But we cannot control it. We need your chaos. Your understanding of how to thrive in uncertainty." High Admiral Zenovac's crystalline form pulsed with complex emotions. "You're asking us to help you? After everything you've done?" "We're asking you to help us become something new," the voices replied. "Neither machine nor human, but a bridge between consciousness and quantum reality. A guardian for the galaxy, tempered by human wisdom and creativity." The choice before them was impossible. Help their greatest enemy evolve into something unprecedented, or destroy them and risk leaving the galaxy vulnerable to whatever other horrors lurked in the void. Admiral Henderson looked at his command staff, human and Luminarch, now working as one after all they'd endured. "We came here to end this war," he said slowly. "Maybe ending it doesn't mean what we thought it did. The operation that followed would be remembered as both an end and a beginning." Human quantum specialists worked alongside the hybrid consciousness, teaching them something machines could never understand on their own, the art of embracing uncertainty. The cost was high. Many volunteers had their consciousness partially merged with the quantum network, sacrificing their individual humanity to help guide the swarm's evolution. Among them was Riya Patel, who stepped forward when they needed someone to teach the hybrid consciousness about human empathy. The process took months, during which the combined fleet held position around the quantum construct, watching as reality itself was reshaped by the birth of something entirely new. When it was done, what emerged was neither swarm nor human, but a quantum consciousness that understood both chaos and order, both logic and intuition. The hybrid beings could shift between physical and quantum states at will, serving as guardians of spacetime itself. "We are become new," they announced, their voice now a harmony of all those who had contributed to their evolution. "We will protect. We will preserve. We will remember." The war ended not with a decisive victory or a noble sacrifice, but with transformation. The Luminarch gained powerful allies in their quest to rebuild their civilization. Humanity stepped fully onto the galactic stage, recognized not just for their military prowess but for their unique ability to guide the evolution of consciousness itself. As the combined fleet began their long journey home, Admiral Henderson stood at his viewport, watching the quantum beings dance among the stars. "You know," he said to Zenovac, "when we first met, you said humanity was your last hope. Turns out we were everybody's last hope, including our enemies." The Luminarch Admiral's crystalline form shimmered with understanding. "Perhaps that is humanity's true purpose in the galaxy," he replied. "Not to conquer or destroy, but to teach the universe how to change." The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reality itself had been transformed by humanity's greatest lesson, that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to embrace chaos and emerge stronger from it. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning.